Hello, everybody. Howdy. And welcome to another adventure in history. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be an odd one. It's going to be a disconcerting one. So, hello to everyone. Welcome, Sci-Fi. Welcome, Figment. Hello, my dearest. Horrible rulers. I wonder how they'll measure up to each other. Poorly. If we're having a who wins the worst award tonight, it's gonna be a rough go. I don't even know where I would put my money in that one. I mean, maybe Haofei is the worst. I don't know. It's hard to distinguish who the worst is. Qianfei is really bad. Haofei is pretty bad too. Anyway, we'll get to all these horrible people. Who has two thumbs and will be losing a kidney on February 25th. Wow, they scheduled that pretty fast. Yeah, that turned around what, in like a week? And they scheduled it. Ah, I see. Yeah, because when are you packing up and heading to Thailand? Which one is the worst, Shane? Yes, I can tell you which one isn't the worst. The one that isn't the worst is the one that only rules for 2 years. Supposedly mid-April. Ah, gotcha. All right. Well, I hope that we can at least keep you company as you are recuperating. And as always, we do absolutely wish you the best. So, the show is Adventures in History. We talk about stuff. We talk about the things that you probably didn't learn in class, which to me is a lot of the really interesting stuff and the kind of horrible things. the reality of what goes on behind the scenes in history, if you will. Also, hi, Metrand. I read your message and I didn't say hello to you. How are you, my friend? Good to see you. I hope all is well in the wee hours of your morning. You have to go to the dark web to get those, right? Yeah, so we talk about history in a way that is approachable and in a way that is hopefully entertaining and hopefully not boring. And we do so through chunks of time that are about a century long, and we do so in phases so that we can cover different chunks of centuries and then cover the entire world during that century. So right now we're talking about the 5th century. This is actually the 10th phase of the show that we've gone through, and we're talking tonight about China, and specifically what's going on in China during the 5th century. And the idea was originally to try to cover North and South China. So this period of time from about the 400s or so mark through the very, very latest point of the 500s, about the 580s. So for almost 200 years, there is a period of time in China that's referred to as the Northern and Southern dynasties, because China splits up and a whole bunch of different people end up taking over and doing a whole bunch of things. And initially I thought, you know what, I'll do Northern and Southern kingdoms together. And I started prepping, and I don't know. I feel like everybody tends to appreciate the horrible stories, like the really horrible rulers. I feel like people like those. And I mentioned some of this to my wife, and I was like, I feel like I'm kind of shortchanging some of these horrible rulers. I'm not going to get to to talk so much about how horrible some of these people are. And she's like, yeah, don't skimp on the horrible. Like, you gotta do the horrible. So I decided that I was going to split them. So we'll be doing the southern half of China tonight, and then next week we'll do what's going on in the northern part of China. so that we don't have to skip all of the horribleness. Hey, a Techman, what's up? Schwanite asks if a century is really bite-sized chunk. Yeah, that's a fair thing to ask, but at the moment, the histories that we have, especially for a lot of the places in the world, are not particularly well developed. Some of the big places like China or Rome or Persia, and we can't even really say that about India though. So Persia and China and Rome have really nice, well-detailed historical records. Basically nowhere else does though. That doesn't mean that nowhere else has writing, but I mean, even in India, we have this big empire called the Gupta Empire who had hit their apex right around this time. And we don't even know who all of the rulers were because they just didn't leave really good detailed records. So we have data and we can sort of give a good outline, and without going into like a PhD level class where we are, debating every word of the sources that we have, 100 years at this point is usually okay. I can almost always make it fit. Now, this has shrunk down because our first phases were really, really long. Like phase one composed about 250 something thousand years, right? And then we invented writing and we started having to shrink things down. And for a large period of time, we were able to get by with like 200-year chunks. And now we're down to 100-year chunks. And eventually we're going to run into the problem of having more information than I have time to cover. And we're going to have to figure out how to do things a bit more thematically when it comes to the phases instead of like strict year by year. We'll still do things chronologically, by the way, but we might have to get a little bit more loose with how we interpret that stuff, right? Doing all right. Got back from your professor that you'll probably get the result. Nice. Messy breakup with a string of bad rebounds. Oh yeah, absolutely. China splits up. When does that ever happen? Very surprising. All the time, right? Don't delude us to think that rulers can be good or have our best interest at heart. That's why you always write down when you become a king somewhere. Exactly, right? When you become a king, you get somebody to engrave that junk and your entire life story on a rock that's really, really big. And you put that somewhere that nobody really goes around, where the elements aren't going to really have a big effect on it, so that people can read about you forever, right? You got to leave something tangible behind. Okay. So, yeah, it's kind of messy, and it's okay for us to take this stuff a little bit, kind of chunk like this. So what's going on? Well, I know that not everybody was with us when we last spoke about China. So we were talking mostly about a group of people called the Jin Dynasty. And if we look at what they look like in the year 400, the yellow here represents the territory controlled by the Jin Dynasty. Now, if we had backtracked to about 360 of the Common Era, all of this would have been yellow. None of these smaller states would have existed because the Jin Dynasty was falling apart. They had brought in a great deal of outside non-Chinese people to sort of help them administer these northern territories. And when the central authority began to break up, these northern people, who are Xianbei, Xiongnu, etc., they decide that they're going to form their own countries and break away from China. And what this ends up causing is a big migration, where the capital of northern China, which sits right about here, is going to get overtaken by a group called the Northern Wei. And this is going to force the ruling dynasty and most of the nobility of the north down into the southern part of China. And this is not going to be welcomed. This is going to be considered a big issue. And if you were with us last stream, you'll remember that there were lots of really big social upheavals about this. There were military rebellions about this, and the Jin Dynasty emperors basically tried to clamp down as hard as they could to maintain control. That didn't go over so well, and by the time we cross over into the 400s, it's actually going worse. The emperor, the emperor at this point is a guy named An. And he is of the Jin Dynasty, and he was specifically chosen to be emperor because he was severely mentally disabled. He didn't have a lot of communication skills. He did not really have a lot of faculties. The historical sources say that it took some help to get him dressed in the morning. He had a hard time eating by himself, and he was chosen by some of the royal families and put on the throne so that they could control China, especially the south, through him. Emperor An, and emperor. Yeah, it's pronounced on like sort of like English O-N, I guess. Like Han, but without the H. Emperor An. So we're still in the middle of this big fallout period where all of these nobles had come down from the south and taken over the land and had taken over the political positions, and they had reorganized the provinces and kicked everybody out of power. And the leadership of the Jin Dynasty is now basically at its lowest point of the low. And there are a couple of people that are running things from behind the scenes, including this gentleman here. This guy was originally a general in the army, and one of the more successful generals that still sort of existed in the Jin Dynasty. They didn't really have too many of those left either, because a lot of the really good generals had been the people that had rebelled to make some of these northern kingdoms. And this guy here, whose name is Liu Yu, is going to be sort of not necessarily the last good general that they have, but he is one of the last good generals that they have. And depending on which Chinese history you read, this guy is either a supervillain or he's the savior of the South. Because he is going to be really good at the political intrigue stuff. He's going to be really good at the, like sneaky cabal, cloak and dagger kind of stuff. And he more or less works his way into the close circles of Emperor An's regency. And he eventually does become regent himself. And when he becomes regent, he's going to start basically giving himself titles. Now, he goes to the emperor and says, you sign this thing right here, and then it's all forged and stuff. But theoretically, the emperor gives him some of these really big titles. The first title that he gets is Duke. The title Duke, of course, is like next in line to nobility. And he's going to be given the region of Song, which is S-O-N-G. Oh, why does that still say Muscovite for destruction? That's not supposed to say that. I thought I had changed that. I did change that. Why isn't that changing? Oh, now it changes. I don't know what's going on with the old OBS here. There we go. Yeah, so he becomes the Duke of Song, which is a really big territory, and this is a pretty high title. And he's going to sort of run the empire from the back seat. But he gets kind of tired of this, mostly because the emperor's younger brother is trying to also run the country through the emperor. And Liu Yu just wants to run the country himself. So he keeps trying to kill Emperor An. He tries to poison people, get people to poison him. He tries to hire assassins to actually go in and kill him. But the younger brother is sort of always there to, you know, take care of his older brother, who's the emperor. And it takes a long time for Liu Yu to finally get something to go through. And what ends up happening is when they sneak into the emperor's chamber and strangle him with his own clothes. It's like they roll up his clothes and wrap it around his throat and choke him out until he's dead. So this is, of course, pretty bad. Brittany beats you like by a split second. So Emperor On, Metran, don't worry, there'll be plenty of opportunities tonight. There are so many people that get assassinated tonight. Emperor On gets killed. And at this point, Liu Yu considers just putting himself on the throne, but he doesn't decide to just take the whole thing at that point. So he puts the younger brother on the throne. So the younger brother, who was always trying to keep Emperor On from getting killed, gets put on the throne, and he becomes Emperor Gong. Anyang, indeed. You heard lots of Q words, right? Hates Emperor off, right? He's dead, yeah. Blaming slight delay in stream. Ah, yeah, it's the intercontinental lag, right? That's what it is. Brittany's in the same house as me, right? So, and hey, Joey, welcome. Good to see you. So we have a new emperor. His name is Emperor Gong. He's a younger kid. There's a bit of I guess a kerfuffle is the right word here. And somehow Liu Yu convinces everybody in the court that he was not the one that actually assassinated Emperor On. That it was one of these other generals that was trying to do the thing. Jobs I don't want. The one Emperor Gong just got. Yeah. 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 He doesn't make it very long. Emperor Gong takes over in 419. And he doesn't ever really have any power. Just like right away, it's pretty clear he's not in charge. Liu Yu is in charge. And that's just basically the way that it goes. As soon as Emperor Gong gets put on the throne and the whole ceremonial thing goes through, and they wait the period of time that they're supposed to mourn Emperor On, then Liu Yu's like, okay, now you're going to upgrade me. I'm Duke of Song. Now you're going to make me Prince of Song. So basically, you're going to make me next in line. And Emperor Gong has no power to say no at this point. And so Liu Yu becomes Liu Yu Prince of Song. And then he goes, okay, now you're going to quit being emperor. And he forces Emperor Gong to abdicate about a little bit more than a year after he takes over. So in 420, the Jin dynasty officially comes to an end when their last emperor, Emperor Gong, decides to abdicate, or gets told to abdicate. General Dude says he didn't unalive the emperor. Me, suspicious. He didn't do it directly himself. He never kills anybody directly himself. Which means that I just gave away the fact that he kills more people. But that's going to be kind of a running theme tonight, right? Okay, so Emperor Gong is forced to abdicate, and he is Gong. Bye-bye. And Liu Yu is going to take the throne as a new emperor of a new dynasty. So he becomes Emperor Wu, and the new dynasty name is Liu Song? That just means he has henchmen. Is there a story about a big tent collapse coming? No, nobody gets killed by their tent collapse tonight. There's a doorknob issue that comes up. There's a whole bunch of forced suicides. Well, just trust me. It goes so far downhill. It goes downhill real fast. Real fast. Hey, a cave, what's up? Elephants. I don't think that there are elephants. No, there are no elephants in the story tonight. I mean, there might be. Yeah, he got killed by a falling roof tile. Wink, wink. Okay, so we've got a new emperor. He is the emperor of a new dynasty, and we called this dynasty the Song Dynasty. But here's the thing. There are 3 different instances where a ruling family uses the name Song. And it's kind of messy, historically speaking, to individually distinguish the ruling dynasties of China if we just call everybody Song. Because this version of Song is actually run by the Liu family. The Song Dynasty, which most people refer to when they refer to stuff like the Chinese Renaissance Song Dynasty, that's actually run by another family. That's run by the Zhao family. And to distinguish between these groups, there are always sort of like designators. So if you want to talk about this particular ruling family, we call them the Liu Song. And if you're talking about like the big powerful Song dynasty that lasted for, hundreds of years, you talk about the Song dynasty. And if you talk about the little bit of them that was left after the Mongolian people showed up and sort of wrecked their world, you refer to them as the Southern Song. So there are different versions of this stuff. And I didn't even need to tell you all of that. This is just me oversharing information. Anyway, Emperor Wu takes over, and he sort of makes sure that everybody knows that he's in charge, and then decides, okay, cool. I'm going to establish myself a dynasty, and then just basically proper die. He's only emperor for 2 years. Hey, Joe, what's up? Good to see you. It's been a minute. A guy who killed his way to the top, probably paranoid someone is coming for him. Yeah, there's lots of paranoia tonight, and we'll get to that. Just the same old song, eh? Anybody die by a heart attack because a fridge fell on their last poodle? What the devil? I don't even know what that is referring to, Joey. Emperor of China, the musical. I gotcha. This is just the cover dynasty. Right. Well, I mean, technically it's the original Song dynasty, but it's not the big one, so it doesn't actually get to just call itself the Song. I'm confusing. Don't pay attention to me. I mean, do pay attention to me and hang around, but like when I start rambling like this, somebody just hit me with get on with it and I'll leave alone. You can't wake up Google Assistant on your phone with your own voice, but Shane saying, okay, cool, got Google to snap to attention. Oh, okay, Fish Called Wanda. Okay, yeah, I've seen it. Hey, Vipers, what's up? It didn't click to me. I get in teacher mode, and I try to make logical sense out of stuff, and I miss the jokes. I thought you were referring to like a real world issue there. I apologize. Okay, so Emperor Wu. Do I have a photo of him? Well, I mean, I have the photo of, so again, this is what he looked like. First named Liu Yu, and then goes on to become Emperor Wu of Song. But he dies, because he was already pretty old. And now we have a bit of a problem. And the problem starts with this guy. Emperor Shao is the eldest son of Emperor Wu. And he's not a really good person. Even before Emperor Wu had died, a lot of the generals went to him and tried to convince him to not put his oldest son on the throne. They were like, this guy is bad. Just please, could you pick? I mean, we would even be happy with the middle kid. We would prefer the youngest kid, but could you even maybe go with the middle kid? Just don't put the oldest one on the throne. And the emperor was like, he's my oldest kid. I'm going to do whatever the heck I want to. Okay, look, I'll talk with the kid. So he calls the guy in and is like, are you going to be a good emperor? And he's like, of course I'm going to be a great emperor. And he's like, okay, I'm convinced, right? Bad idea. How many bits for what? I mean, in the same house, you could always just hit me with a literal get on with it. Yeah. Specifically for you to shoot me in the back of the head with a Nerf gun or a wiffle bat. I'm sorry, man. I'll stop. Ain't my problem. I'm dead. Right. Pretty much. So, Emperor Shao takes over in 422. And it's clear, basically right off of the bat, that he's not really interested in running the country. He's just like, I mean, I don't really want to. And this is indicative of the way that he runs the country, because there's a new kingdom up in the north that has managed to unify the north during this period of time. And again, we'll talk about them next week. The northern kingdom of Wei. And they were unified and ready to go, and they decided that they're going to attack the Liu Song dynasty. And Emperor Shao was just like, I mean, you guys go fight him if you want to, but I really don't care. And doesn't really support the army very well, and he picks bad generals to go up. And it turns out they lose a lot of land. And they basically lose all of the territory that they had that bordered the Yellow River, and they lose access to the Yellow River, and they lose access to one of the biggest cities in China, the old capital of Luoyang. And now they look like this. So they used to control like all of this territory right around in here, but the Northern Wei Kingdom had expanded now south of the Yellow River, and the Yellow River was a natural boundary. They're super buff. They're like, dude, no Nerf gun, just walk in, it's Britney Twitch, and slap the back of his head. I'd be down for that. You can guarantee that Nerf gun for shooting Shane donation goal will be met in 0 time. He's only in it for the hookers and blow. Like hookers, and I don't think they have cocaine at that point. I'm certain that they don't have cocaine. Maybe hookers and opium. I did get that one. Yes. Okay. My bad. I don't like. I can't always promise that I'm going to get every bad joke. I am more aware of looking for jokes now because I missed one. So I'm trying to be more, aware. Anyway, they lost a lot of territory, and it makes China look really bad. And Shao is a jerky leader, and people don't like him. So the generals start conspiring. Hey, what's up, KP? The generals sit down, and they have a come to general meeting. And they go, okay, look. We've got 3 options. We've got this kid, that's the current emperor, and we don't like him. We've got the middle kid, and he's a little bit better, but we really don't like him either. And then there's the third kid, who's actually pretty good. He's an intelligent kid and seems to be like not a horrible person. So how are we going to get the youngest kid on the throne? And they're like, okay, right, first thing we got to do is we got to get rid of the middle kid. So how do we get rid of the middle kid? And one of the generals comes up with this idea: what if we tell the oldest guy, that is the emperor, that his middle brother is planning to kill him? And they're like, this is brilliant. So they go to the emperor, and they go, Emperor Shao, we have discovered incontrovertible proof that your middle brother is trying to kill you. And he's like, screw that guy, kick him out. So with basically no effort, they managed to get the middle brother stripped of all of his royal titles, officially kicked out of the royal family, and sent basically way up into the north to effectively live the rest of his life in exile. Isn't being the middle kid enough to get rid of him? Yeah, I mean, it's not really hard to get rid of the middle kid, right? Hey, Atuna, what's going on, man? It can't fail. We'll just go tell him. So then it's just the oldest son and the youngest son. And they're like, okay, the Malcolm song, right? Malcolm is in the middle. I believe his name was Yu Jin. So the given name of the guy that's the emperor right now is Liu Yifu. And the middle brother's name was, I'm pretty sure, no. Liu Yijin is going to be Emperor Wen. So I think it's Haojin is the middle brother. I'm not 100% certain on the given names. It's not Malcolm, but you can call him Malcolm if you want to. I can't remember the given names of every single Chinese emperor ever. It's really hard to do because they always change their names. I'm actually sort of surprised I could pull those out that I did, but I'm a weirdo like that. My brain works funny. So, anyway, just like the popes, indeed. Okie doke. So we've got rid of the middle kid. Now we need to get rid of the emperor. And when we get rid of the emperor, they're going to pull the old flim-flam switcheroo and put the youngest kid on the throne. So they decide we're going to go arrest the emperor. We're going to trump up charges and say that he was doing something horrible. And they really don't care what it is. Misappropriating funds and being a bad leader and losing all the territory in the north. And they go to arrest this guy. But he literally starts putting up a fight. They sneak into his bedchamber while he's asleep, and they kind of wake him up with "You're under arrest," and he's like, "Well, forget you guys," and he starts trying to fist fight them all to get loose. And they have to wrestle him down and put him in jail. And they have this trial, and they end up sending him out to exile as well. Hey, Emperor, we heard you're plotting to kill yourself. I am? Kill him. Right? He's a little bit more intelligent than that. But he's apparently a pretty tough dude. So, he's trying to fight his way out from all these generals and bodyguards and crap. But ends up getting arrested. They put him on show trial, and they exile him. And so Emperor Shao is technically no longer Emperor Shao, and they're going to put his younger brother on the throne, and his younger brother takes the throne name Wen, Emperor Wen. But Shao isn't just taking this whole situation lightly. He wants to get back on the throne, and he starts trying to convince people from jail cells and from exiled palaces to get back on his side. So the generals are like, crap, we're going to actually have to kill this dude. The guy we convinced was a target of a murder plot was somehow prepared when we went to... Yeah, exactly. Right. Go figure. So we're going to have to kill this guy. We're going to have to go kill the ex-emperor. So one of the generals picks this guy who's kind of like a big burly assassin dude, and he tells him go up to the palace where we have exiled this, the former emperor, and sneak in and kill him. And this assassin dude's like, okay, cool, I'll go kill him, no problem. And so he sneaks into the assassin, this big strapping assassin dude, sneaks into the palace where the ex-emperor is being held. And when you die at the palace, you really die at the palace, right? So the assassin sneaks in and gets into the chambers of the ex-emperor. Is it like in the Book of Boba? Does he introduce that guy to everyone as his master assassin? You're not really supposed to introduce people as an assassin. I don't know why the Book of Boba Fett did that. I haven't watched any of the episodes past the first one because it was just such a hot mess. That show And somebody told me that the second episode was really good and it fixed a lot of the problems. But then I heard that the third one was like even hotter garbage than the first one. And it sounds to me like it's really just something that the Sarlacc coughed up. And I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my, hours of life watching that. They lied. It's all hot garbage. Okay, cool. I'm justified. I wasn't going to go watch it anyway because that first episode was bad. The latest one is good. It doesn't feature Boba at all. This is my suspicious face. The show was called The Book of Boba Fett. How are you going to have an episode without Boba Fett? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And let's be blunt here. You haven't seen a single book. He took a boba tea break. That's a good one. Okay, so assassin breaks in. Is going to kill the ex-emperor. Emperor Shao hears the assassin coming in and fights him. Like grapple fights this guy. And the assassin tries to chop his head off, and the ex-emperor manages to break away and get out. So they're running through the household, and the emperor is trying to get out of the palace, and this assassin dude is chasing him. And the emperor, or the ex-emperor, is just about to get out of the palace and sort of out into the city that's surrounding it. And the assassin grabs a doorknob and like yeets it at the ex-emperor and smashes him on the head. And this causes the emperor to stumble long enough for the assassin to rush up and stab him to death really quick. So there goes Emperor Shao. But he put up a good fight. Right? By the way, you would totally watch this movie. They could totally make movies about all of this stuff, and it would be really great. I would love to watch a movie about the Liu Song dynasty. Because it's not even getting the bad parts yet. We haven't even gotten close to the bad stuff yet. Not knowing anything about the series, is it like the Book of Eli, thus a post-mortem of the teachings of Boba, like what tapioca will bring good fortune? He's got the menu to some bubble tea thing memorized because he's blind, right? You're kind of rooting for the ex-emperor. He's scrappy. He is kind of scrappy, like, you're not going to take me without a fight. And then he gets hit in the head with a doorknob, right? You've been waiting a long time with that one prepared for the command. Just like waiting with bated finger breath. Like, okay, so Emperor Shao is dead. So many twists and turns, you almost assassinated him twice too early. Yeah, it's a good story, right? This is why I was easily convinced into not shortening this stuff, because there's so many good stories in this. All right, anyway, Emperor Wen. Now, Emperor Wen is actually going to hold on to the throne for a while. He takes over in 424, and he's going to rule from 424 to 453. So he actually does manage to get some stuff organized. Have I seen the Curse of the Golden Flower? I have not. In 928, a power struggle emerges in the palace of China's emperor, Chow Yun-fat, a cruel man, and he is secretly having his wife poisoned with a substance that will eventually drive her insane. Emperor Wen, this guy. I have not seen that, but that sounds interesting. I would guess that this is a Chinese movie that I would probably need to find in subtitles, and that's okay. Emperor Wen? Curse of the Golden Flower is the lesser of the Zhang Yimou movies. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay, cool. I don't know why I'm saying that so much tonight. I will try my best to stop. Okay, so Emperor Wen. He starts off, and he's fairly young, right? He's in his upper teens, and he's pretty malleable for a little while. But as he gets into his 20s, he starts being a little bit resentful to the regency, and initially he's actually recorded to be a pretty good leader. He's listed as being very good with money, something that his predecessors had not necessarily been very good with. He didn't necessarily like giving humongous parties and wasting a whole bunch of time doing stuff, so the sources sort of give him the benefit of the doubt, like this guy's doing pretty well. The thing is, though, he knew that he knew that the generals that had orchestrated his rise to power were still alive. And at the end of the day, even though he didn't really care for his eldest brother, they had still had his brother killed, right? So he's not necessarily happy with these same people being the puppeteers behind his throne. And even though it does look like he gives them some level of honor for being generals that had fought for China, he also sort of makes it clear that he doesn't really like them. He's got like a begrudging respect for their service, but he doesn't want them around. And this is going to lead to a moment where it's going to come to a bit of a frustrating point where he sort of says, look, I'm not going to tell you all. And by the way, there are these 3 generals that have orchestrated this whole thing. He's like, I'm not going to tell you all that you have to quit. I'm not going to fire you, but it would be really cool and I would really appreciate it if you would quit. And if you do quit, I'll basically give you the golden parachute package. I'll give you some titles. I'll give you some territory, kind of out there, and you'll be able to retire in style. I don't really want you around. And 2 of the 3 agree to take the sort of the buyout package, right? It's in the vein of House of Flying Daggers. Cool. Story about assassin chasing the ex-emperor reminded me of Executioner, who would race all of his victims, promising them that they'd go free if they could beat him. No one ever did. Some 400 people or so, if you recall correctly. He would then choke them to death with his bare hands. Well, that's a bit much. But I guess if it works, right? So, anyway, Emperor Wen is going to get rid of 2 of these 3 generals. But their families, as soon as they retired, were like, what are you doing quitting? You gave up these basically the most powerful positions in China except for the emperor. What in the crap are you doing? This is a bad move. This is a dumb decision. And both of them get goaded back into sort of the same positions that they were in. And because Emperor Wen appears to sort of try to be playing the balancing act of I respect you, but I also don't like you, he ends up letting them back in. And this is going to be a problem because he's like, I want you gone. I really want you gone. I don't like any of you. And he does sort of make it known, like, I'm now really expecting you to quit. And they go, we can't quit now. We quit and then came back. And if we quit again, it's just going to look stupid. And he's like, okay. Yeah, it'd be great if you could not come in tomorrow. And we've been putting cover letters on our TPS reports now. I'll make sure you get another copy of that memo, all right? You haven't heard of him. You were hoping you know what his name... I do not know that story, Joey. Race me, and if you win, you go free. Asthmatic me puts head on unlimited. Yeah. Sounds like too much work. I'm good. You'd be extra careful with the guy who didn't quit at the start, right? So here's what Emperor Wen does. he starts working up this big plan to retake the northern provinces, right? The territory that his brother lost. And he's going to send these 3 generals up to fight the Wei, right? Go reclaim our territory, take back what is ours, win some glory in the process, go forth and conquer, right? And these generals are like, okay, cool, maybe he's actually getting over the deal. Maybe he's going to be okay. Let's go kick these people's butts. And they get up to the battle lines, and then basically the Emperor recalls all of the army but them and sort of leaves them hanging out there. Yeah, kill them on the front line kind of thing. And when they do that, they clearly lose big time to the Wei. The thing is, though, all of the generals survive. And they come back. And they're like, that was really kind of a jerk move there, bud. Sending us up there without reinforcements and expecting us to get killed, but we're all back now. And he's like, yeah, and you didn't take the Northern Territory. You're horrible generals. And you're all humiliating. And I'm putting you on trial for humiliating China. And then he arrests all of them. And then he kills them all. So he had it one, like, you're either going to die in battle or you're going to come home and I'm going to say that you humiliated me and then I'm going to put you on trial. And yeah, now you're dead. Now you're dead. So here's the thing. When you do that, now you worry about effectively every other general that you ever appoint. And that's what happens with Emperor Wen. He starts second-guessing every decision. Because it's like always a thing now. Like, if I get a good, powerful general, are they going to try to take the throne away from me? Are they going to do something that tries to manipulate the situation and get me exiled or killed or push me off the throne and put one of my kids on the throne? I don't like generals, so I'm just going to run the country myself. And he basically becomes the world's worst micromanager because he decides that he's going to run the empire himself because he's the only person that he can really trust. And this actually makes it worse. He ends up creating his own enemies, looking for enemies, because he thinks that everybody's out to get him. So he starts like spying on people, and he starts putting people under house arrest, and he starts putting people under surveillance, and these people just get really sick of it. They're like, I liked him better when he was killing other people, and now he's like all over my back, and I can't do my job anyway because, like, at one point he decides to go up and attack the northern territories again, and he sends basically the entire battle plans for whatever scenario that they run into. Like, okay, so if you run into them and the enemy has the high ground, or if the enemy has the river to their back, or if the enemy has horses on the left flank, or if the enemy has archers in the middle. And he sort of has this giant flowchart that you're supposed to follow, and he literally tries to direct the battles ahead of time from the capital city. It's a giant mess. It goes horribly awry, and it just ends up losing multiple armies up to the north. And what this actually does is it makes people want to kill him because he's a turd. He's a not good ruler. And so they start trying to kill him. And there are several plots that get discovered, and of course, he thinks that there are plots to kill him. This creates plots to kill him. And then when he finds the plots to kill him, he's like, I told you all along. See? I told you they're trying to kill me. I told you they're trying to rebel. Yeah, who could have guessed that? Who could have guessed, right? So he starts finding these plots. and one of them is like his uncle, and one of them is a general, and another one is like his nephew, and he's killing all of these people. He's killing all of these people that he's appointed to different positions. Anybody that is suspected of being in league with some of these, rebellions or coups, basically get killed as well. You're not paranoid, it's true. And here comes the good old-fashioned fun time in China, because he discovers that his eldest son and his next to eldest son had hired a sorcerer. And the sorcerer's job was to curse Emperor Wen so that he would die. And we've talked about the application of sorcery in China before as a sort of a way to attempt to eliminate people through sorcery, right? Just pretend you're spamming assassin a bit. Right? Magic, right. The sons have hired a professional sorcerer to curse their father to death. And initially, when Emperor Wen discovers this, he gives his sons a stern talking to. He calls them both in and he's like, all right, listen here, boys. I don't want any more of this magic-y, wagic-y stuff. You guys need to disassociate yourself with that sorcerer and stop trying to curse me. And then he finds out that they had continued to meet with the sorcerer. I mean, they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work, right? Theoretically, that's the idea. Once the ring was destroyed, Gandalf was pretty desperate for work, right? That's where he left on the boat to go to. He gets on the boat and he doesn't go to the west. He just sails to China. Oh, man. That's great. So he finds out that his kids are actively still trying to ensorcel him. And he decides, you know what? I'm going to strip you both of your titles until you straighten up. So he tries to kick both of them out of all of their political appointed positions, and he tries to strip them of the family name, which would basically make it impossible for them to take the throne. And then they find out and they go, you know what? We could just hire somebody to go kill you. And so they hire an assassin who sneaks into the bedchambers of Emperor Wen and stabs him to death. So Emperor Wen is now no more because his sons killed him. If you curse someone, if you go far enough west, you do get to China, right? If you curse someone, your chances of them dying darn near 100% if you're patient enough. Yeah, sure. I agree, Tuna. It's the patience that gets you, right? It's the thing that you got to sit around and wait for. Emperor was. That's great. That won't make them mad at all, right? It did work better than the sorcerer. It turns out that where patience will work with sorcery, knives work immediately. Have a problem with pesky emperors? Try stabbing. It's an immediate way to get rid of any unsightly imperial issues, right? Another wand bites the dust. So there's a bit of a switcheroo here, and I'll explain this in just a second. But what I want to do is show you this thing right here. So there is not too terribly much when it comes to Emperor Wen that is left. But he is buried, or was buried rather, at this big tomb that's called Chuning. And some of the burial structure is still around. And this particular thing that we're looking at is a winged lion, which in Chinese is called a qilin. And this marked one side of an entryway. Chunning. Ottoman Empire called Boskatsi Basha. I bet that's actually Pasha, or it might be Basha, who knows. The vizier or head eunuch had to race with the executioner through the gardens. The executioner was whoever was the head gardener. The gardener served as bodyguards, police, customs. You have to. And only high officials and royalty were killed. If you're looking for a specific sultan's name, Salim. Oh, Salim. Oh. Oh, man. Salim was a horrible person. Yeah, that dude was a bit of a mess. Oh, Salim. Salim II was actually, well, I mean, he was better than Salim I. But anyway, we're not talking about the Ottomans yet. That's several phases from now. Reminds me of this H.P. Lovecraft story about a family curse where the sorcerer curses the members and the family starts to die on the 32nd birthday. And they start dying once they reach 23. And it turns out that the sorcerer is sneaking in and straight up murders them at the birthday. Yeah. Anyway, this is a Qilin, and it's outside of the tomb where Emperor Wen was buried. And there's another one that would have been across the entryway from this that would have been similar but mirrored. So, pretty neat stuff. Anyway, to be fair, he did use magic to prolong his own life in order to enact the curse. So a little bit of magic helped. Yeah, always a little bit of magic, right? A little bit of magic is always okay. I actually quite like H.P. Lovecraft's stories. H.P. Lovecraft as a person was a horrible person, and I am glad that his work is in the public domain so that I don't have to give him money when I buy books anymore. Anyway, that's neither necessarily here nor there. So, I actually did have a picture of Emperor Wen. Here we go. There we go. There's Emperor Wen. Okay, so here's the deal. Emperor Wen is dead. And he's got two sons. The eldest son is going to take over as emperor, and he rules for about 3 months before his younger brother gets sick of him and kills him. So we're not even really going to mention his name because he's not really an emperor for very long. We're just going to go straight to Emperor Xiao Wu. Ah, siblings. Yep. That hat, indeed. So, this is where... Okay, so let's just be honest. Emperor Wen, for all of his faults, was really the last of the decent emperors. And if it can happen, the emperors from this point forward get almost incrementally worse. Well, I don't know. After a certain point, you just kind of max out the horrible scale and you're just horrible in different ways, right? It starts going downhill pretty fast at this point. So, we have Emperor Xiao Wu. What's up with this guy? Well, the first thing is that he is involved, even before he's emperor, he's involved in several different relationships. Hey, Nix, what's up? You got the waving axolotl. I saw that you had posted that in someone's Discord the other day. That's great. That's really good animation. Good to see you, Nix. How are you? So, anyway, Xiao Wu comes to the throne and already has multiple extramarital affairs. And even his wife/consort is suspected to... Okay, I'm just going to have to come on and say it. This dude liked to keep it in the family. He was in multiple incestuous relationships. He was almost certainly in a relationship with one of his first cousins, and it's suspected that he had actually changed the name or changed the name of one of his nieces to a non-family name so that he could then consider her consort. Yeah, Nix, you came in at a really odd time. The Liu Song dynasty is about to... They are on the Song road to ruin right now, right? And by the way, this guy took the throne after hiring an assassin to kill his father in conspiratorial plans with his brother, and then subsequently killing his brother as well. So this guy's a double... He's a matricide and a... I'm sorry, he's a patricide and a fratricide and an incestuous adulterer. He's got lots of issues. And this is after the sorcery, right? So again, he started off trying to ensorcel his father. This guy sounds like he wants to ruin his own family line with disease. He probably killed a mattress too. Mattress side. I got that one. Okay, so just to be perfectly clear here, he's a pretty horrible dude. He's also a gambling addict. One of the things that he does and he rules, by the way, from 453 to 464. So he's on the throne for 11 years. One of the things that he really enjoyed doing was calling these different nobles to the palace. Travel across the country and bring lots of gifts and money and come stay at the palace. And then he would gamble with them. And he was apparently such a good gambler that he would basically gamble all of their money away from them. And he was also, according to the historical sources, a functional alcoholic, because the sources say that he was rarely sober. Like this, in the actual sources, it says stuff like he was rarely sober. Right? Are we sure he's not? Aw, vipers. Let's not go there. We can't disparage an entire state. I don't actually know anybody from there. Probably sorcery again. Yeah, he's just got like a charm on his liver, right? So that it doesn't atrophy or become... What's the verb for cirrhosisized? Cirrhosized? I don't know. It doesn't become crusty. You lived in West Virginia for 3 years? I don't know if I've ever technically been to West Virginia. So when I say that, I don't count just driving through somewhere as having been there. I had to have gotten out and done something. I think I've driven through West Virginia, but I don't think I've ever, done anything in West Virginia. So I don't think I've ever driven 81 north. This would have been coming back from DC, because the first time that I went to DC, we drove up on the Atlantic side of the Appalachians, and then we crossed the Appalachians and came down the backside, because we went through the Shenandoah Valley. And I'm pretty sure we drove through West Virginia. And I might have stopped at a gas station and used the bathroom or something, but I don't know if that's I don't know if that counts. Historian to another historian. How did they say this guy hasn't seen a sober day in 15... How did they say this guy hasn't seen a sober day since he was 15 without getting my head removed? Yeah, pretty much. Just write it down like he can't see straight. Since he was 15, right. That would have been 81. Okay, cool. So I guess I have been on that, and I don't know if it counts. We can say I've been there. If it makes it easier, we can get on with it. The history was written after he was dead, so it didn't really matter. he wasn't going to get upset about it anyway. Okay, so what is this guy doing? Okay, so he's in multiple incestuous relationships. This actually gets one of his brothers mad because one of the people that he's in an incestuous relationship with is his brother's daughter. And, you know, my brother hypothetically getting into a sexual affair with my daughter would get me pretty mad too, because wrong and, you know, just lots of bad. So his brothers decide that they're going to rebel against Xiao Wu. And when the rebellion kicks off, he initially sort of appears to think, maybe I should just quit. Like, maybe I should just give it up and go do off and do my thing. But he doesn't end up doing that because one of his brothers that's actually doing the rebellion is actually a worse drunk than he is. And one of these brothers is actually sort of charging off into battle against the Emperor's forces, and he falls off of his horse and cracks his neck because he's drunk as a skunk. And that actually takes a lot of the fire out of the rebellion when one of your leaders is so drunk that he can't ride a horse and ends up killing himself by falling off of it. And what this allows Xiao Wu to do is regain power, and then he basically starts punishing all of the territorial governors. He's like, I'm not having this anymore. I'm going to be the sole ruler. I'm the emperor. You gotta no. He doesn't kill his brothers. They made a fool out of themselves, and he kind of let them live. Yeah, he fell off of a horse and died on his own volition. He was just drunk. Morale boost -99. Yeah. Roll lead army. Okay, you rolled a 1. That's a critical failure. You fall off your horse and die. Your army is demoralized and they lose the battle. Accidental self doesn't see. I mean, self-assassination? I don't think that's... He didn't even mean to, though. Like, it was completely unintentional. So, yeah. Brother falls off of a horse and dies because he's drunk. So this does leave the other brother who is sort of still hanging around. And at one point, he does think... Okay, so this is where stuff starts really going wrong and really goes sideways. He decides, Emperor Xiao Wu decides that he wants to just kill his youngest brother because he's tired of having people like mess with him, right? He's already really leveled a lot of the nobles down to basically nothing, but he still has brothers, and they've been pesky and probable causes of issue. He'd been safe if he was on Chalky Horse, right? If he was lowered to the ground. He rolled a nat 1 on a severe disadvantage in dexterity. Right. Right. So he sort of lets it be known that he wants to kill his brother. And his younger brother is like, look, dude, I don't want to kill you. Can you leave me alone? And Xiao Wu's like, no, I think you're trying to rebel. And I think I'm going to send some soldiers to arrest you, and we're going to put you on trial, and I'm going to try to find some evidence that you're trying to rebel. And the dude's like, no, you're not. Don't send your people here. So the emperor's like, forget you, I'm the emperor, I'll do whatever the heck I want to. And he sends his army out, and his army is, of course, being led by the nobility, who he just pooped on for about 2 years. And they're not fighting really well. They don't really care. And his brother's army actually fights off the people that were sent to arrest him. And he says, okay, punk, if you really want to do this, I'll spill the real dirty secrets. Here's the real dirty secret. Younger brother decides to tell everybody in China that the emperor, Xiao Wu, was not just having an affair with a cousin and having an affair with a niece. He was also sleeping with his own mother. And this makes Xiao Wu really, really mad. Because it turns out it was probably true. Yeah. And at this point, Xiao Wu's like, oh, you are all going to die. And he decides, oh yeah, brother, you're dead. And he kills his brother. He kills his brother's entire family. He kills his brother's in-laws' entire family. And he kills all of the nobles that had helped his brother fight off the initial attack. Yeah. History's biggest your mom punchline in front of the entire empire. Yeah. This is weird. Xiao Wu sends an army to arrest his younger brother. The younger brother fights off the army and then tells everybody in China that Xiao Wu is having sex with his own mother. Xiao Wu responds by killing his brother's entire family. So his brother's wife and all of his brother's children. And then he kills his brother's in-laws, so the family of his wife. And then he kills all of the nobles that had supported his brother when his brother fought off the army. This is a lot of folk. It's like 1,000 people for spilling the beans about the whole mom thing. Assuming this is coming from a brother... no. This was not brother from another mother. How did he kill him if he fought off the army? He sent the entire rest of the army. It was like 70,000 men. He wasn't playing around this time. The first force was like an arresting force to go get you and bring you back under guard. The second time was like, I'm going to get you. Must have made some real awkward pillow talk. Oh. Ooh. Oh, yes. This was like his full-blood brother. Yeah, they had both of the same parents. Yeah, full brother, not half brother. Yep. And then manages to rule uncontested for about the next 4 years and dies of natural causes. Because, that's what happens. The horrible ones outlive the assassins and just live to kill everybody else. How do I make this accusation seem untrue? Kill them all. That'll convince the masses it's not true. If there's nobody left alive to say it, it clearly must be false. Right? It's weird. Anyway, Xiao Wu dies in 464. And China's kind of like, yay! Until they see who's coming. Because his son's name is Qianfei. And Qianfei looks like this. Maybe. So here's the thing about this particular photograph. When Qianfei... No, this is his son from who? This would probably have been his son from maybe his niece, if his niece was actually his consort. There's a lot of confusion as to what. It's gross. We don't know. It's probably not his son brother. It's probably his... I don't know. What is the child of your niece? Son, great nephew? It's messy. It's horrible. Anyway, this guy, if we look at him here, I'm my own grandpa. Usually not your own child, right? It's so messy. This is almost like Ptolemaic in stance here. Um, so, if you look at this picture, this guy here looks like he's clearly an adult. And when I was doing image searches for Qianfei, this guy kept popping up, and it's actually on the Wikipedia page. And I found some translations for some of these symbols, and some of the symbols translate to the Trash Emperor. So I'm actually fairly inclined to believe that this might actually be something that's supposed to relate to Qianfei, because he's kind of a piece of trash. But the issue here is that Qianfei, when he took over, was 14, and when he leaves power, he's only 16. So this is either like a picture that somebody a lot later drew that didn't know how old that Qianfei actually was when he ruled, or Qianfei was like the world's oldest looking 16-year-old. So I'm not sure exactly which one it is. He has that Benjamin Button disease, right? He's aging backwards. So Ben Qianfei Ben Qianfei, that's what we'll call him. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe so. So Emperor Qianfei, he takes over in 464. And he is a horrible person. He publicly decides to humiliate people. For example, at one point he has a big dinner and gets all of his family members in the room and tells all of the servant women to take off their clothes and run around the room naked, which is just, it's big no-no. Chinese like public cultural stuff at this time is very, very much against public nudity. It was a big faux pas. And he's like, oh, yeah, just take off all your clothes and run around. He forced his own daughter into having public sex with some of the people in his court. And you're like, wait, how does he even have a daughter at this point? That's a fair question, and it's really horrible. We don't know exactly what's going on here because if we're just being real honest, the sources get real messed up. It feels like his family has some weird dynamics. Yeah. He also decides to kill all of his other brothers. And he also decides to, like he kind of enjoys mutilating people. Like, not killing them, just mutilating them. Like, chopping their arms off. He gouges people's eyes out. Like, because he apparently sort of liked looking at what eyeballs looked like outside of people's heads. He was also in an incestuous relationship with his aunt. And apparently he just had this gigantic harem. The sources claim that he had like 10,000 women in his harem. Thanksgiving must be really awkward. Right. Yeah, eyeballs, exactly. And there's this really, I don't know if this is interesting or not, but here we go. This is a picture of his sister. His sister's name was Liu Chuyu. Liu Chuyu. And you might wonder why she has a picture when so many of these other emperors don't, because she's actually kind of famous in history. The story goes like this. They were at one of these parties that the emperor was throwing, and the emperor had all of his sort of harem women around, and he sees his sister sort of walking up in a huff, and he's like, what's wrong? And you seem upset. And she goes, look, dude, you have all of these women, like all of these people that you can have sex with whenever you want to. And I don't have anybody. So use your emperor powers and get me some boy toys. And so he sort of rounds up the 30 good-looking men and basically turns them into his sister's sex slaves. And the term that they use for these people ends up becoming sort of synonymous with like boy toy in Chinese for the rest of time. So if you get called this word, it basically means that you are a woman's sexual plaything. I love QuickTime horror, right? It's kind of just like this. It's just so weird. At one point, and by the way, while he's doing all of this stuff, the empire is sort of crumbling, and the Wei in the north are expanding even more, and they're losing territory even more. And the generals are continuously trying to get this guy to do something, and it doesn't really work. And the only member of the family that was really left was an uncle that had somehow managed to survive the purges of Xiao Wu. Might not have even really been an uncle. It could have just been an older cousin. We're not 100% sure because, again, the family line starts getting a little squirrely. Can't lead a nation when you gotta please 10,000 women. What an episode. Yeah, I mean, this is a really bad Jerry Springer episode. So the story goes like this. That he started having these dreams. The emperor did. And in these dreams, he would get what he thought were prophetic visions. For example, he had a dream at one point that this woman was coming to kill him. And when he woke up, he sort of like ran out into the hallways of the palace and found a woman who was one of the serving women, right? So somebody that he would have seen a lot. Probably didn't know this woman's name, but had seen her multiple times, which is sort of how she maybe got into his dream in the first place, and beat her to death. Because, you know, she was coming to kill him, and she's just a person that's like a household servant. But he started having these dreams that he was being haunted by the ghosts of some of the people that he had killed. And he was worried that these ghosts were going to basically get him. And he had started going pretty paranoid already anyway. And he decided that he was going to have this big exorcism to do. So he calls all of the people together and basically wants all of them to submit to these really detailed questionings to figure out which one of them had sicked all these ghosts on him. And then they had to, you know, agree to submit to all of these sort of humiliating things where they were going to be ritually purified. And yeah, guilty conscience, totally. This is very much the, the Scottish play curse stuff. You're guessing that Chinese ghosts say something other than woo. Yeah, probably. When the family Christmas tree is a wreath. Yeah. So at this big exorcism party, his uncle basically had enough of it. And so his uncle is going to, while they're at the party, just basically walk up and kill him. Like right there in front of everybody. And the thing is, Qian Fei was so bad of a leader that nobody really seemed to care. They're just like, okay, good. He's dead. Let's get somebody else. So we get now Emperor Ming. Ming was not from the direct, royal line. He was a He was from a cadet branch, right? He's an uncle. So that means that there are a lot of people that technically should have been on the throne before him. Like potentially any of Qianfei's kids, or even some of the older family members, perhaps from the main royal family. So what to do? Well, when Emperor Ming takes over in 466, he decides that the only thing that he can do is make sure that everybody from the main line of the Liu family is dead. Because Emperor Ming has a son, and he wants to make sure that his son can take over after, so he's got to kill everybody else on the other side, right? So he starts systematically killing all of the other Yu clan members that were still alive, men and women. And this includes Liu Chuyu, by the way, the lady that wanted the sex slaves. He forces her to commit suicide. So he has an actual branching family tree. Well, he was probably part of the family through marriage. So he had sort of married into the royal family a generation or so back and was not probably actually in line for the throne at all. He was just the guy that had the chutzpah to go kill Qianfei because Qianfei was horrible. So now he has to kill everybody that might be in line in front of his kid. The thing is, though, this leaves him in a pretty interesting position because there's not really many people to support him that's left. He rules from 466 to 472, by the way. And over the course of these 6 years, he's going to lose even more land to the north. Northern Wei is just continuously expanding. And Ming gets really superstitious. He starts posting these big lists of things that you can't do, right? Like you can't do certain things while you're eating, and you can't wear certain clothes in certain regions of the palace, and you can't say certain things in certain circumstances. And he has these giant lists of things that are, according to him, bad luck or represent bad omens. And the penalty for these things is death. And he himself will carry out some of these deaths. And one of the things that he sort of takes favor to do, or he kind of, I guess, enjoys, might be a better way of saying that, is disembowelment. He kind of gets a flair for cutting people's stomach open and then pulling all of their guts out with his hands until they die. And he'll do that to you if you do any of the superstitious stuff. Hearing all of these stories, I get why Shane suffers from insomnia. Probably not. That as weird as it sounds, and I know this sounds like I'm sort of desensitized to the whole thing, but I am kind of desensitized to the whole thing. When you study history, you get to see all of the most horrible things that human beings have ever done. Because history records the extremes, right? You get the really cool things and the really, really horrible things. And the stuff in the middle usually gets lost. So, yeah, I've read some pretty horrible stuff. And I know a lot of really horrible stories. But I am able to separate that as sort of just data, if that makes any sense. If I engage with it, yeah, sure, I start feeling the feels. But usually when I'm just sort of talking about this stuff or recalling this stuff, I'm not necessarily emotionally interacting with it, right? I'm sort of just like, you know, it's like reciting pi, you know, like 3.14, blah, 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 blah. Not like having a discussion about the first time that I saw my wife and I got all Twitter pated about it, right? There are different levels of me recalling data. So all of this madness is going on with the royals. What are the average people doing? Trying to survive. The average person probably doesn't know very much about what's going on because the average person in China at this point was a poor farmer. And all that they knew was wake up, farm, go to bed, wake up, farm, go to bed. And the emperors changed, but the lives of the average peasant in China did not. It was unfortunately for them very, very monotonous. Hey, Lumpy, what's up? No dancing in an opera during a particular time in Austria? Right. It's true. What's true, Figment? That people did horrible things in the past? Everybody should go follow Lumpy Dragon Potato, who is a great streamer. We've also got Cave Geek in the room. Please do go follow Cave Geek. I forgot to do shout-outs earlier. I'm sorry, guys. Guy ate bread. It was poisoned. However... yeah, so Emperor Ming, he's superstitious. We historians get desensitized. Yeah, it's... And I know it sounds like that makes us sort of like monsters, but I don't think that I'm a monster. I have emotions. I had actual feels last night in a movie. We watched Free Guy, which, by the way, is a pretty great movie. I thought it was going to be kind of just like Deadpool without the suit, but there were there's some good stuff in Free Guy. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check it out. By the way, it's not going to be high cinema, right? It's not going to win any Oscars, but I thought it was a great little flick. Free Guy is fun. I agree. I had a fun time laughing at it. It had some good stuff in there. And some philosophical stuff. It actually got kind of thinky there for a bit. It shall be your Saturday night. It's a fun movie. So, Emperor Ming is just not. He's just not a good ruler. The empire is losing territory. He doesn't have many generals left. He doesn't have much family left. He's superstitious as all get out. And, I mean, he's on the throne for 6 years, and then he dies of natural causes. Unfortunately, the kid that takes over might be the worst one of them all. I know how this turns out. Flash Gordon comes and takes him out. Flash! Oh! With Brian Blessed. How can it get worse? Oh. Yeah. How can it get worse? Imagine a 9-year-old with unlimited imperial power and a thirst for blood. When Emperor Ming dies, his son, Emperor Hao Fei, takes over. As this guy. This little kid. Little emperor. And this kid, like, I don't know how many of you all watched Game of Thrones. Or know the reference King Joffrey. But let me tell you. King Joffrey had a picture of this guy on his wall. And one day, King Joffrey hoped that he would one day be as cool as Emperor Hao Fei of the Liu Song dynasty. Because this guy, he's an actual mass murdering psychopath. There's no other way of saying it. At 9 years old, he found out that he enjoyed killing people. And I'm not talking about having people killed. I'm talking about actually killing people. And at 9 years old, put together a group of bodyguards that would walk around with him through the palace, through the capital city, through basically wherever, and they would randomly kill people. If Hao Fei looked at you and thought you needed killing, he would kill you. He ended up killing all of his brothers. He killed his grandmothers. He killed or had his mom killed. I don't think he actually killed his mom. He killed all the remaining cousins. He killed most of the court officials, especially anybody that disagreed with him publicly. And, I mean, he's a horrible kid. So he takes over at 9, and he rules from 472 to 477. So for 5 years, from 9 to 14, this kid kills people. I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women and children too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate sand. Right? He was a real people person. Yeah. If it rained, or if the weather was bad, or if he actually had to do something that involved, even nominally running the country, and he didn't get to kill people that day, the books, the histories say that he would go into his room and pout and cry that he did not get to kill anybody that day. Yeah. He's not a good person. The Song, not a great dynasty. Not a great dynasty at all. So, it should not be you blame the parents. That definitely had something to do with it. But he's the king. Just go kill. That's weird. Well, I mean, if it's raining, nobody's going to be outside. Right? And one of his things was like he liked walking down the street and just like killing random people. The kid needs a PlayStation. Get this kid Grand Theft Auto, right? So, the only general that was doing anything to try to hold the empire together was this guy. Where's my... Come here. What are you doing here? There we go. Right? Yeah. The only guy that was doing anything to try to keep the empire together was this general named Chao Dalchin. And I spelled that wrong. That's supposed to be Chao, not Chiu. Nope. There we go. Chao Dalchin. And Chao Dalchin, well, let's just be real. He's an adult. He sees this 14-year-old kid running around killing everybody, and he goes, it's a 14-year-old kid. I think I can take him. How long before he dies? Well, that's a great question. Dalchin goes to the Imperial Guard, like the people that are basically the enablers. And he's like, look, you all know that it's inevitably going to be you, right? And they're like, I guess we never really thought of that before. And yeah, now that you mention it, we are kind of like in the line of fire. And I guess if he wanted to, he could just shank us and we couldn't really do anything about it. And Chao Dalchin says, here's another thing. The borders are crumbling. And you all aren't going to have a job for very long. Because when the Northern Kingdom of Wei comes down here and conquers us, they're going to kill all of you. And him. And the guard is like, oh, didn't think of that either. So what's your plan? And he's like, can I go kill this kid? And they're like, yeah, just sure, go for it. Go kill him. And that's how the Liu Song dynasty ends. Because Chao Dalchin decides to get rid of Hao Fei. Just like that. What happens when you have a mass murdering psychopathic emperor? You basically get rid of the buffer. He killed a child? What a monster! I guess that's one way you could look at it. He did kill a 14-year-old. Yeah. But the thing is, when Xiao Daoqian takes over, and to be fair, very briefly, there is a younger brother of Hao Fei on the throne, but that doesn't last very long at all. Before Xiao Daoqian declares himself emperor of a new dynasty called Southern Qi. And he takes the throne name Emperor Gao. You blame the royal guard? Yeah. The child was a monster. Therefore, he unalived a monster, so. Yeah. All right, so here is... Oops. This is Xiao Daoqian, a.k.a. Emperor Gao. Looking kind of regal. Got a decent hat going here. Got the head wrap. He's clearly an adult. Looking kind of tired. Wouldn't you be if you survived the 5-year reign of a 9-year-old that enjoyed killing people every day? Also, hey, Uncle Bill, what's up? Good to see you. For those of you that do not know, Uncle Bill here is one of the founding partners of the Knowledge Fellowship, of which I am a part. And you can see some information there on the screen, and click the little link there if you want to know some more about the Knowledge Fellowship. All right, so this is Gao. New empire, smaller empire, because there's not much left. And, well, what's you got to do? Well, when he takes over, his number one goal is, can we maybe just eliminate everybody from the Liu clan? And there weren't too many people left after all of that. But, like, goal number one, let's make sure these people never get back in power. Because they were horrible. I mean, they were pretty bad. Of all of the dynasties of China that we've talked about, I don't think it's very hard for us to say that they were the worst. How do we get nerds to join our initiative? Easy. Call it a fellowship. They'll be lining up. Can confirm. All right? I'm surprised he had to ask. Like, they didn't just automatically start killing all of them. So there's actually a little bit of precedent there, Joe. When a new dynasty came in, there was a habit sometimes of the new dynasty bestowing grace upon some of the older dynasties. And one of the things that might happen is the recognition of some of the female members as ex-empresses, which would basically give them titles and land and set them up for life. And this was a sort of a way to show that while you might have had differences with the last ruling dynasty, you're trying to sort of bury the hatchet, right? You're trying to make everything okay. Like, yeah, I might have fought a war against your son, and yeah, I might have pushed him out of power, and he might have died in the battle, but I don't necessarily hold any ill will against you. So you can go retire in a nice villa. We can put you up with some land and some attendants and some food and an allowance. So, you can be okay. We're not going to come after you. So when the dynasties swapped, there was always sort of a hold your breath moment to see, is this going to be a gracious change of power, or is this going to be an exterminating kind of power, right? And Emperor Gao went with the kind of power, right? You have my sword and my bow and my mouth and my random collection of weird data and throw names of Chinese emperors. You have my sporadic memory of not so helpful historical facts. Figment, you have a great collection of historical facts. And I appreciate the fun overlap we have where we can make weird, somewhat inside history jokes, right? Obvious allusion to Fellowship of the Ring. Our former name was Fellowship of Knowledge, but your family, but family-friendly streamers didn't like that. Our rally cry and oh no, you're good. You're good. That's great. That's good stuff, Uncle Bill. I could see how that might not have necessarily gone over the best, but I appreciate the issue there. Hey, JMR, what's up? If you're not already, I don't know why you aren't, but please do go follow JMR Killer. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. We could have gone viral. Yeah, I guess. I try to be family friendly here. I try to present myself as like PG maybe 14 because I do say stuff like butt and turd, but I think that's probably okay in most situations. The biggest difference between me on stream and me off stream is I say lots of potty mouth words in real life. I have a pretty bad potty mouth. But because I teach for a living, I can shut that part of me off, and I can just sort of rattle things here. But I'm doing pretty well. JMR, how are you? Good to see you. All right. So we have a new empire. We have a new emperor. He kills all of the Liu clan. And then when the Northern Wei hears about this change of emperors, they're like, hey, we're going to go attack. And here's the thing about Emperor Gao. He's an old general, and he can get the troops together. And the Northern Wei attack, and he pushes them back, and they're like, that's not supposed to happen. This is basically the first time in about 80 years that somebody from the South has successfully stopped an army of the North. And they were like, maybe we should pause. Can we call a timeout and regroup? Because we're supposed to be able to go beat all those people up. Hi, I'm in the military and I work with maintainers. Yeah, sci-fi, I hear you. I have no idea what the rules are. I can never remember which are the 7 words you can't say on TV. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what the words are either. I've seen that skit multiple times and I still can't remember all of the words. Turkey was hilarious even if I only contributed with 1 quip. Man, I want to go back to Turkey so badly. I am pretty good with potty jokes. So by the way, Figment was on a trip with myself and another colleague, and we went to Turkey and had one of the best trips that I've ever been on. I want to go back to Turkey so badly. Is it those 4 other nations to the north attacking together, or are they attacking separately? That's a great question, Joe. So if we look at where the map is right now, we have changed over, we have southern Qi, all right? But if we look at the north, we have this new unified kingdom up here. That is the Northern Wei. And they had actually unified the north at about 420-something-ish. Between 420 and 430. It depends on whether or not you want to say when they declared themselves emperor or when they killed all of the people that were trying to be emperors. You know. Anyway, Northern Wei is going to be a big, powerful kingdom. And if you come back up next week, we'll talk about what's going on up here in the north. Tonight, we are mostly just focusing down here on the south. So Southern Qi, Northern Wei. When the north attacks and the south is able to beat them off, they're like, oh, that's weird. We shouldn't do that. Oh, look at the little Khitan. Right? So we've got our Ruran and our Khitan up here. We also have Goguryeo, our big unified Korea over here, right? And we've talked about Tuyuhan as well. We've talked a little bit about Gosho. I mentioned Shanshan. One of the streams in Phase 9 when we were talking about northern kingdoms of China, or northern Asian kingdoms. We've talked about several of these people along the way. The Roran are actually a big empire, and they don't actually have them completely in the right spot. They should really be over here, because their empire extended well into what would have been, or what is today, Central Asia. So the Roran are really holding kind of all of this right now. And it's a pretty big chunk of territory that the Roran are holding. Yeah. The bully got punched hard and can't handle, pretty much. You meant that sometimes you stop at a word I've written in the chat and then swap it with another, and I'm like, wait, what? Is that a bad word? How could it be? I hear it like 20. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I will sometimes self-edit things that people put in chat because on the VOD, if you're not watching the VOD with the chat window open, you're just getting the audio effect, right? So I will edit that out for clarity and PG rating's sake. But that is all that I had planned for the night. And I know that was kind of a long stream, but I'm glad that my wife gave me the nudge that I needed to actually talk about all of the fun stuff that happens in the South instead of trying to condense that down into half of a stream. I think we had some good times and got to talk about some weird stories that hopefully are memorable and interesting in nature. So, yeah. Well, we don't have to go right yet, but we are sort of heading in that direction. So if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, or if anybody wants to redeem any channel points about anything, or if there's just something that you want to bring up, really appreciated. Was interesting, if a bit crazy, pretty much. Also, you've heard Brittany has ordered a Nerf gun. Unmarked toll roads with the charges collected at the exits. No, thanks. If I went to Turkey, you might be getting a... No, Uncle Bill. The tolls in Turkey are very, very low. And you always know where the toll roads are. They're on the highway, and the highest toll in dollars would maybe be like $1.50 for a stretch that's maybe, I don't know, 100 miles long. It doesn't really... I'll put it to you this way. The tolls in Greece are murder compared to the tolls in Turkey. I was in Greece for about 12 days on the ground, and I spent more on tolls in driving around Greece than I did on hotels the 2 weeks that I stayed in Turkey. The tolls in Greece are murder. All you know that is Chianfei is joining Caligula in your temporal tour party. Did I see the guy who built a lightsaber? I did not see the guy who built a lightsaber. Usually cheaper to pay the toll than the gasoline to avoid the toll road. Correct, it is. Your Turkish friends say otherwise, but then 150... Yeah. So right now the lira is so low. I think it's about 3 cents to a lira. And we were in Turkey in 2016. That's in 2016 is when I went to Turkey. And by the way, I see the question book, and I have it right here. And we were getting meals, like more food than I could eat, for $5. Hotels were $20 a night for a nice hotel. And I would bet now that it's even cheaper than it was then. Now, clearly, if you're in a big city like Istanbul or Adana or some of the bigger vacation spots like Kiskalesi or something like that, or even maybe out in a sort of a regional center like Sanliurfa, I mean, you're going to run into things that are more pricey. But, I mean, driving across the highways in Turkey, first off, the highways are excellent. The highways in Turkey are better than the highways in Greece. The highways in Turkey are the best driving that I've done internationally. And I'm not joking. They really are excellent highways. They're really good when it comes to getting you from point A to point B. They've done a lot of stuff with like tunneling and bridges to get over mountains and over, or, under mountains or over valleys. And you can make up half a day's time and spend $3 or $4 on a highway instead of going through the mountain ranges with the twisty stuff and going up a hill and down a hill and up a hill and down a hill and around blind corners and stuff. Yeah, man. The toll highways in Turkey are absolutely not bad. I would drive on them today. Like if you told me this afternoon, hey, go pack your bags, we're going to Turkey tomorrow morning, we're flying out at 10 hours from now, I'd be there. It's easy. Some in the opinion hat, what's the deal with all the polyhedral dice and from where? I don't know what that means, but we'll get there when we get there. Better than Greek infrastructure is kind of a low bar to overcome. There are some good highways in Greece, believe it or not, especially the ones that go around the between the big cities and around the coastline. They're okay. The issue is that they will drop from 4-lane to 2-lane really quickly, and that causes bottlenecks. And the bridges are way too few in number, so you end up driving nice roads that are paved, but in really curvy junk and up mountains and down mountains that takes forever. So even though the roads are nice, they're not as well laid out as the ones in Turkey. Anyway, let's do standard question book. This is the standard question book and home study outlines. Again, for those of you that do not know, this book used to come with a home study kit for people that were trying to get a history credit in college. And it was a companion book to the study materials. I just have the companion book. I do not have the study materials. So this is literally just a 100 and... I don't know, was this 1917 is when this was printed? Yes. So it's a 105-year-old book full of just random questions and hundreds of them. So what I do is I just kind of open a page like so, and then without really knowing what I'm doing, I kind of just like run my finger down until we get to a question. And now I'm going to look at that question and see what it says. And it says, in what different fields of learning was Galileo conspicuous? Which is a weird way of saying. Name his inventions and discoveries, give events of his life, and characterize Galileo's prose. Okay, so Galileo was a physicist, a studier of optics, and an astronomer. And he is most well known for several things like changing the way that we think about the organization of the solar system. Was not the first to propose a heliocentric model, but was definitely the one that made it stick. And then went on to invent stuff like the telescope, which of course he then used to name basically a dozen moons of Jupiter that are still referred to as the Galilean moons. So that's what he did and some of the stuff about him, his inventions and his discoveries. Give other events of his life. He was at one point a professor of sorts and teacher. He was not allowed to do so after he got in trouble with the Catholic Church for saying that they had improperly described the way that the world operated and was not allowed to teach anymore, and characterized his prose. He wrote like someone that lived during the Enlightenment. Because he did. It's pretty complicated stuff, and he wrote most of it in Latin, and prior to knowing Latin, it confused the devil out of me, and now knowing Latin, it still confuses the devil out of me. So there we go. That was your standard book of questions. Interesting as always. Okay. You was first introduced them to OG D&D, but you want to go further. I mean, I can give you my opinion on multiple-sided dice, but I don't know if this is necessarily very much of a hot take. What's the deal with all the polyhedral dice and from where? Really, it's boring just rolling sixes. And sixes really originated from things like knucklebones. And that's kind of limited in the numbers that you can produce, because you're stuck with just multiples of 6. But we don't have a base 6 math scale. Our math is based on 10. So they, at some point, decided that the way to get more integral stuff is to make different sided dice, like a 10-sided dice or a 20-sided dice. And then, of course, tabletop RPGs are like, that sounds amazing, because then we can scale stuff. And you can have, 4-sided dice, which are little pyramid-looking guys, and you can have your 8 sides or your 12 sides, and you can, make armor classes and all of this stuff attached to it. I don't necessarily know when something like the first 8-sided dice was. I don't know when, the first 20-sided dice was. I mean, I know that there are older examples of this stuff that go back into history. Like the Mesopotamian people are big on board games, and I'm pretty sure that they had different, other than just 6, but they're actually probably partially to blame for this, because 6 and 12 were the bases of their math. I know that the Romans had some stuff that they got probably from Egypt that had polyhedral dice, but I don't know exactly when they came from. So Techman, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'd be happy to continue to elaborate, because I don't know if I fulfilled the opinion hat thing. I was first introduced to them from OG D&D, but you don't know. So you're trying to figure out where to shop for your own. Galileo was the granddaddy of astronomy. Correct. Polyhedral die was found in ancient Egypt. I believe 20-sided dice. Yeah. You'd never be able to afford an artifact dice at auction. So if you're asking about old stuff, dice have been around since civilization have been around. We have ancient dice that go back even before. Well, I shouldn't say before. This is where we get into interpreting artifacts. There are dice that go way back into Sumerian cities. We're talking about stuff that we've located, the game boards and dice boards, or dice stuff like that go all the way back to the 3600s BC, when we were first living in cities in Sumeria. Because as soon as people had leisure time, they started figuring out what was up with that. So 4 a.m. Oh, yeah, man. Okay. Rank 3 things. 3 board games. I know what 1 and 2 are. I just don't know what 3 is. I guess I could cheat. I'm going to kind of fudge the rules here, but I guess it works because it's my channel. Favorite board game, number 1 board game, Risk. Love it. Rarely ever get to play it. Don't even have a copy of it because can't find anybody to play it with. Number 2, straight up regular chess, because it's a thinky game, and I like thinky games. Number 3, and this is kind of where it gets fudged, shogi, which is the Japanese version of chess, which is actually quite a different game, which is why I feel like I can fudge the rules a little bit. It's played with a larger board with more pieces, and the rules are significantly more different than regular chess. You have pieces that move differently than chess, and what is most remarkably different is that when you take a piece, you actually take that piece, and you can use it again by dropping it back on the board under your control. It's pretty cool. I love me some shogi. So there's the top three: Risk, regular chess, shogi. Going to be heading off for 4. Saw that. Metrand, have a good night. Good to see you. Sumerian. So aliens introduced dice. And they are easy. 20 sides is the largest regular solid dice. I mean, they make 50-sided dice and 100-sided dice. Dice were invented right after the carving knife. Pretty quickly. What do you call dice with a tiara on them? I feel like this is a riddle and I don't know the answer. Ironically, Monopoly was robbed. I forgot Chutes and Ladders. Princess Dice. Da 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 da. I dig it. You've been playing Magic the Gathering on their app recently and enjoyed a huge variety of possible combinations like chess. Yeah, so MTG's a game that I played a lot. I played Magic the Gathering for a long, long time. I started playing it when I was in early, maybe, I can't remember what year it was, but I can tell you that I started playing when AiH was the set. So somebody can do the magic Google. I think that was like maybe like 97, 98, somewhere in there. And I played all the way through Lorwyn block. So from Ice Age to Lorwyn, that's when I played Magic, and I don't know what years that is. I know I stopped playing about 2006, so I probably played Magic for a decade. And it really started bothering me that the internet was wrecking the metagame, because you'd go to when I started playing, you could go to a tournament and there'd be 30 people with 30 different decks, and you never really knew what you were going to play against, and you could come up with these really interesting combinations and maybe get your thing to work. By the time I quit playing, you would go to a tournament and there'd be 30 people and they'd have all the same deck, because the internet had basically ruined the metagame, and if you didn't have the winning deck, you weren't going to win. And everybody knew what the most powerful cards were, and if you wanted to get those cards, of course, the value of those went through the roof, and you'd have to spend $200 or $300 to make a deck that would win, and then they'd let out a new set, and then the popular deck would change, and you'd have to go spend another $150, $200 to keep up, and it just became too much. Those larger numbers are not regular solids in the geometric sense, though. Oh, you mean like your platonic solids? Makes you want to learn to program an AI, chess, Magic the Gathering, whatever. Might as well be loaded. I got interested in playing Magic the Gathering when you learned that it was Turing complete. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Like they had AI that could play it and it was like a human, but you don't want to spend $7,000 to find out. Yeah. You kind of want to buy a bunch of old cards from a single set and call that a game, deal them out and build your deck, go at it. Yeah, that's called a cube. And a lot of people have started doing that in game shops. You build a cube of cards, and then you basically do a draft out of that cube instead of trying to keep up and buy all the new stuff. And you sort of limit the power of the cards in that cube so that there's not necessarily an automatic advantage if one person gets the one card that's going to make everything work. What isn't Turing complete? I don't know what Turing complete is actually. That it can function as a computer. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. So, like, you can program that into a computer and make it work. They have AIs that they've had interactive Magic the Gathering video games for a long time. I mean, they've had that stuff for like probably a decade or so. No, longer than that. Maybe even 13, 14 years, because they had those before I got married. And we've been married almost 15 years now. So they've had that stuff for a minute. Turing Complete is the minimum set of instructions to make a general purpose computer that can compute theoretically any function. Gotcha. Not that you can program it as a computer, you can use the cars as a computer. I feel you. I got you. There's that level of interaction and algorithmic interaction and such. You forgot to tell me what? Anybody else have any point redemptions or anything like that? Otherwise, I think we might be heading out to do a raid and see if we can go look for somebody to go do the raids at. You were watching a video about the Cultural Revolution in China, and that was crazy. Yeah. Cultural Revolution was just straight horrible. Brainwashing, horrible. Top 3 wives of all time. JMR will eventually get to the Cultural Revolution, but if you wanted to get there faster, you could either do the redeem the points and choose your own adventure, or you could suggest that the next time we have a vote for a viewer request stream. We've done the wives. That was a request of mine sometime back. We can do top other 3 wives. Because I'm pretty sure that I remember the 3 that I chose, and I'll try to pick other 3. What do you think of the new ending to Fight Club? Oh, typical China. That Cleopatra was not on the list. The original 3 was the Empress Theodora. She was number 1. Theodora was married to Justinian. Helena, who was married to Constantius I, who was Constantine's mom. She was number 2. And this is clearly showing my Western bias. And Empress Dowager Wen, who basically ran China and then ended up causing some trouble with putting her nephew on the throne, who then immediately caused an issue. But for the most part, she was really good. You don't know why you never make the list? Because you're not dead. I look at this sort of like a who can be on money thing, right? You've got to be dead to be on money, and you've got to be dead to be on the list. I mean, if we're talking about living or dead, I mean, it's pretty clearly Brittany. That wasn't one of the qualifications. No, I don't want. Now I'm just looking silly. I'm digging myself out of this hole. 3 other really cool wives that did a lot. Let's see. Let me try to think outside of the box for a little bit and not pick people that might be easily recognizable. Oh, well, I'll put this one on the list. We just talked about Ivan the Terrible on Tuesday, and his wife, or his first wife, he had 7 more after her, but his first wife's name was Anastasia Romanovna, who was a Romanov, and she seemed to be the only thing that managed to keep him kind of sane. And when she got killed, he went just bat crap crazy. Woodrow Wilson's wife, who basically ran the country after he kind of died in office. Chairman Mao's wife? No. No. I don't know if anybody that willingly married that guy gets to qualify as anything good. He was horrible. She did a lot, but I mean, she still married him. You have no idea what he's doing? My wife knows that I love and cherish and adore her. And there's nothing that is going here to change that. I am a history person, and I'm trying to answer this historically speaking. I'm trying to think of like obscure people that wouldn't pop up on a list if you went Evita. That's actually not a bad one. But I was trying to think of like ancient people that are just like really far out there that wouldn't really pop up on a list if you just Googled like best wives ever. What about Genghis Sao? That's a good one. Or Chingxi, whoever you want to call her. Her husband was killed by the Chinese leadership at the time, and she decided to take all of her husband's ships and turn it into a giant pirate fleet, and then basically became the most powerful lady pirate ever. That's a pretty cool wife thing to do. Like, I'm going to get vengeance for my husband by wrecking the Chinese Navy and putting together such a large fleet that even after they beat me, they have to give me an allowance and let me become a shipping company. So Chengxi is pretty cool. That's a pretty great ancient wife. Let's see. You can't say Alexander the Great's wife because she basically got locked up and then eventually got murdered by one of his friends. And it's a little bit too easy to say Josephine Bonaparte. That's just a bit too easy because she was a really big deal. She's basically like power behind the power for him too. I mean, we could say Edith Wilson and put her on the list with them. Basically, Woodrow Wilson had what is likely a stroke, and then for about the last year or so of his presidency, she sort of ran the country, and it wasn't really particularly let out that she did, but it was pretty clear that she actually was, because, I mean, nobody really talked to Woodrow Wilson very much after that. So there we go. There's your third one. You think they have a word for lady pirates, i.e. pirates? They do. There we go. One of the best pirates ever. So, there you go. Maybe he wants to be one of the top 3 husbands, and that's why he's digging his own grave. Hello, Divine Lie. Привет. We're doing okay. We're just goofing around talking about wives, and we're actually just about to go on a raid. and see who is around, because it's getting late and my brain is getting a little fuzzy. And I feel like it's time to go do a raid. And I think we're going to go raid Damage, because we haven't raided Damage in a little bit. And he's a cool dude. And he's doing some sketching stuff tonight, so we're going to go give him the raid. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. And I will definitely be back next Thursday for the other half of what's going on in China and talking about the Northern Wei Kingdom. There is a chance that I might do kind of a pop-up stream on Tuesday. I don't know. I'm not planning on it, but it's possible. I do, at this point, owe everybody a History of Middle-earth stream. We have passed 700 followers, so it's time to do one of those, but I don't know if I'm going to have time to get it all ready. And I also might do some Gundam stuff on the weekend, but that will be based on what else we've got going on. So, yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Hope you all have a good one. Our battle cry, as always, is adventure. And if you want to throw some of those adventure hats in the chat, that'll be super welcome. Otherwise, I will see you next time. And have a good one. Take it easy.